Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics, here to show you how to make one of the blocks from this beautiful table runner called Maple Leaf Runner. It's a cut loose pattern. When we saw the Reflections of Autumn fabric collection from In the Beginning Fabrics, I knew it was the time. It was the perfect combination to make this just stunning table runner. Look at these fabrics. I think it's probably one of the most, if not the most beautiful fall collection I've ever seen. I just think it's next level in its beauty, its depth of color, and it really captures what it looks like in North Idaho, probably in New England around that wonderful time of September, October, when all the colors are starting to change. So this is what I love about this quilt block is actually it uses a Creative Grid tool called the Kitty Corner. I can't wait to show you how to use this. This is very new to me. I love the block it produces. And I have a feeling there might be some more projects coming out from Shabby Fabrics using that tool because I think it's just really neat what it creates. So what I have on the table with me is kind of an exploded version of how this block is created. So I'm just going to break it down. I'll talk you through that, and then we're going to work through that, and you're going to be like, wow, this is really doable, and it is. I love that part. So you can see some of this is just cut into rectangles and squares. Certainly the center, these corners over here, and even this part here where that's not applique, that's pieced, we're simply going to start off with a square of fabric, cutting that corner to corner, and we have a very small piece of our beautiful autumn fabrics here that we're going to piece inside. Cut very carefully corner to corner. I've got one done that's kind of partial here. And you can see that once you have this, you're just going to place that right side together. Just like that. It might even be easier to almost see it from this side. I think, in fact, it will. Let's just go sew this. I have some aids on my sewing machine. I have both the diagonal cluck cluck seam tape and a seam guide. So one of the things I love being able to line up, right? I'm able to start lining up sooner, and I've got this nice ridge here of helps me be accurate and honest with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you can see just how straight this helps me sew. Sometimes, I mean, true confessions, I'm kind of a little left and a little right. This really helps us be accurate. And we'll be pressing to the outside. And you repeat the same on the other side. So I have my spinning mat here, a great aid I'll be using during this, especially when we start using this in a bigger way. But before we take a deep dive into how do we use the ruler, how do we read the ruler, and I'm going to do some bragging about this newfound tool that I can't wait to use in a bigger way for more projects. You've heard me say it before. I like being able to oversize and trim up to the exact size with a tool. It helps this block that has many pieces lock together like a puzzle. So now we need to square this up to 2 inches using the 1.5 inch finished lines. I'm just going to try to run that line right down the middle of that very narrow strip with the equal amount of fabric on either side and making sure that I'm set away from my 1.5 inch so that I have a chance to trim up on all 4 sides. We always want to be able to do that. So I feel like my line is running right down the middle of that, and I'll make my first cut and I'll rotate. We're going to switch this now. Now that those two sides are cleaned off, now I sit this in that saddle, that 1.5. And there's my line running right down the middle. And again, cut once, rotate here. That's our stem right there. That's going to be, isn't that fun, depending on where the fabric hits. In this particular instance, I had more orange. In this instance, I had more brown. That's just how leaves are, right? They have that varying color. So that's one of the first parts of that. This is easier than it looks. Remember how we said here that we're cutting a rectangle, easy peasy. Well, this is also just a rectangle. We have a square of fabric on the top, and I've just, with a straight edge and my friction pen, just drawn from corner to corner, and we will sew directly on that line. That's all that we need to do. And I will press those away. I generally, before I trim, I like to press away and do a check on that, making sure that's where I want. And once it is, then I will go in and I will trim that away. Just like that. One thing I want to point out to you is this. Notice how this and this are not interchangeable. Here, I have my line drawn this way. When I want to do this side, I need to have that on the opposite side so that I create this point here. So you want to make sure when we were making our sample, we're like, oh, you just do the same thing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. No, there's a left and a right side. So just be mindful of that. And of course, your pattern will be guiding you through that. You'll just repeat that, whether that line is drawn from right to left or left to right, to create these. That's basically called snowballing the corner. This is the part that we're going to spend a lot of our time on right now. And this is using the kitty cornered tool. There is really no other way that I know of, aside from paper piecing, to achieve this shape. This is a really cool ruler. I guess it's not really a ruler, it's more of a tool. Super versatile, just like many of the Creative Grid that makes multiple sizes. So let's just examine this from the overhead. We have step 1 in the upper right corner. We have step 2 and we have step 3. We have trim 1 and trim 2. You've already seen a square up function over here. These are also some lineup, and we have a really fantastic set of instructions that are included with your kitty corner tool. And we'll be walking through those together today. I want you to be comfortable reading the tool and following these instructions so that whether you're near a computer and can watch this video or not, you're very comfortable using your instructions. You want to keep those in a safe place so you can refer to those. Because sometimes when I step away from a ruler for a long time, I forget. And I have to go back and refresh myself. And I'm like, where are those instructions? I need those right now. So you have the instructions on the paper, but this is also giving us some instructions here. So just like many of the other Creative Grid rulers, we talk about finished block size. And we know that this section right here is going to finish, once it's sewn into our quilt, at 3 inches. So we are going to come down to our 3-inch, it says finished block size 3-inch, and it's saying that we need to cut 4-inch squares. Now, this is telling us that we want to cut 2 of those. Just keep in mind, this tool is built for making 2 at a time of these blocks. As you can see from our quilt, we could not resist making each one of those maple leaves a little different than the other. And so in your instance, you actually only need to cut 1 of those. But if you want to use the tool for maybe another project, go ahead and cut those 2 of each color. That's up to you. But for what we're doing, we only need to do that 1 4-inch square, and I have that right here. Let's move on to the other parts because now we have these, right? Let's rotate this, and again, finished block size, 3 inches, and they're saying cut 2, 3 by 4 and 4.25. Weird measurement, right? 3 by 4.25. I want to call your attention to something that is very important. Must be mirror image. Place right side together. Remember how I said we're only making 1 leaf with this fabric? But this fabric is a constant in every single one of these. And they're a reflection of each other. I can't just cut one of those and make this block work. I must cut 2. And we will place them right sides together. And this is where we will begin to use our tool. What's cool about this very first step is when I make this first cut, I'm actually cutting enough fabrics for 2 blocks. Remember, this makes 2 blocks. Keep that in mind. But because we've only cut 1 center, I will only use 1 of the pair for this, and the other pair can be for another block. Let me put that right there. Looking at our tool and following our instructions, and we're right here at this point, right here. Our first step is to take our fabric that is going to be kind of that beautiful point, and we're going to fold that on the diagonal and press. Our step 1, and that's what they're showing us right here. See this, how they're emphasizing right here. And it says, I'll put my fabric there, cutting units. Fold square diagonally and place the fold on this line. So we will place that just like that. So I want that dashed line running right along. That's what they're showing us right here. And we're going to make a cut. This is this portion of that, and you'll want to repress that to be good and flat. I already think that is just so clever and absolutely incredible. When we move on to step 2, that's what these are all about. Notice there's 2 of these, and we're going to place those right side together. Let's go ahead and move on in our instructions. Remember, they must not be both up. They need to be right side together to be reflected. That's an essential step here. Now we move on to the step 2 of our ruler. With the fabrics right side together, and we're here, hopefully it's not too glary from the overhead. We'll place our fabrics here. And I always like to do a check. Is this what my sight picture is showing me? And we are. I will make a cut. This is not waste. Notice, this is another pair for another one of, maybe we're going to use it here. So those will be put aside for use with another block. With our 2, now we have one more step to do, and that is shown right here. We'll rotate this one more time, and with our fabrics as shown, so we're just going to be mimicking what we're seeing. We're going to bring this right down into that saddle again. Let's make sure our fabrics are stacked perfectly. And we'll cut. All right, steps 1, 2, and 3. We'll put this aside for now. Let's keep looking at our instructions. You can see how you might get confused about the arrangement. This is what this is going to look like. So let's just show, hopefully you can see that. Actually, let's put that over on that. See, I even did that backwards. It makes almost a square. Can you see that? If you have the picture of a square, see how I got this backwards? I'm like, that doesn't seem right to me. That notch, why did we cut that notch in? Why? So that that would fit beautifully just like that. It's my guide. If I had that point out there, I'm not exactly sure where that should sit. But with that step 3, when we clip that tip off, this now makes this sit in here just beautifully. I'm going to pin this and we're going to head over to our machine. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'll be using the Cluck Cluck seam tape to get lined up good and early, and my seam guide as my ridge to keep a good honest 1/4 inch seam. Another thing that's great to do, I should have mentioned this because I'm feeling biased, like I'm sewing unbiased for sure, is sizing. Sizing is such a great low-cost insurance policy. Add sizing to your fabrics. Anytime you're going to be doing piecing, give them a good press, fresh blade, and then get your cutting going. I definitely have improved results in accuracy every time I add that sizing really into my blocks. Okay, now with this right here, this little tail, because my next piece, if I lay this out, this flag is kind of bothering me. I'm going to go ahead and trim that away. So I have a nice, clean visual edge all the way down. There we go. I go back, I'm like, yes, that should go there. That notch is right where it should be. See, without that notch, I wouldn't know where the end is. But here, I do. So once again, we'll go back to the machine. So another 1/4 inch seam allowance. Right, and once again, we get to press away. And as you would suspect, we get to square this up. My favorite part, right? Love to be able to square up and get everything all just perfect to go into our block. Remember, we had step 1, 2, 3, we've done that, but we also had trim 1 and 2. So let's now go to, we're here, right? This is where we currently are. They had that little flag still sticking out. That's the one I trimmed away. It kind of bugged me. They left theirs on, so that's up to you, but this is where we are. Now, you can see that the point of that is the very first trim. Here, this was up. We're going to rotate that now. So let's grab our tool back. Our trim 1 is up. Remember that we're going for a 3-inch block, but we're not going to use the 3-inch lines yet. Notice how this is identifying this point right here to sit right in that corner, and that diagonal line is hitting this corner right here. So I'm going to finesse that just a little bit until I believe these lineups are right in my corner. This is right in this corner. Just like this. And I sit it right into that saddle. And I am going to rotate the mat because once you find your spot, you don't want to pick this up for the second cut. You want to rotate that. Okay. All right, what are our instructions telling us next? Now, if we want to, what would probably be easier for you, so everything stays upright actually, I'll just rotate this block. Now notice the point was up before. It says rotate the block. All right, we'll rotate the block. That's now up. Remember how we cleaned off those two sides? Now we can use these lineup lines down here, the 3. And we're sitting right in that saddle. This point is going all the way right from that corner. Now we have a chance to once again, 1 and 2. And look at that. Look how just beautiful and accurate that is going into our block. This tool, just like all Creative Grid tools, the Flying Geese tool, especially in conjunction with the spinning mat, I don't have to move anything, is just this beautiful marriage of products that really results in fantastic blocks, right? So once you have all the elements laid out, obviously this is a lot of pieces to sew together, and my goal was to teach you really how to use the tool, how the block is constructed. What we discovered, and we kind of put the sections together, because you're like, where do I start the assembly? We had really positive feedback from Bethany, who prepared the video prep for me. She feels the instructions here and the pressing instructions are really accurate. So we give a lot of the thumbs up for a really good solid pattern here to follow the instructions as written, and had great results. Their recommendation of really kind of putting the block together in this arrangement, and I want to flip these over for you so that you can see how this was pressed and how that went together. You know, certainly at that point, pinning is very important. Interlocking seams are important. The accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance really comes into play. If you struggle with that, I've got the diagonal seam tape. We've got the seam guides on there. Even the seam guide setter is another option for you. That'll help you set a scant 1/4 inch. If you tend to be like me and sew a little bit on the heavy side of a 1/4 inch and you want to sew with a scant, instead of that, even if you just find that your blocks are coming out small, maybe a scant is a good solution for you, and that's what that seam guide setter is all about. Once you have your block like this, of course, now it's just right side together. Anytime you can get interlocking seams such as here, you're going to want to pin in that intersection first, and then pin in your other areas, sewing that accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then again pressing per the instructions in the pattern. So you can see that this table runner, while it looks very advanced, it's not. It's just one step and then another and another, and obviously made possible with the Kitty Cornered Ruler by Creative Grid. So thanks for giving me a couple minutes of your day to show you how to make this beautiful leaf block. I'll see you soon on another video.